makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Kamala Harris sat down with Charlamagne the God for an interview which had some very cringe moments. I did not know who Charlamagne the God is. Apparently, he's a radio host and has a show on Comedy Central, I suppose, by the logo of this video. Um, this interview was there's a lot of talk about the last question that he made, which was he asked her whether who's the real president, Joe Biden or Joe Manchin. And but before that, there was another question that I also thought was really good, and there was something weird about the response. So let's watch this.
I agree. You talked about a lot of the things that, y'all have done with the administration, but, it's a few things still left on the table.
It's Simone. I just want to know this has to be our last question.
So that was a very weird. So there's going to be two interruptions here by one of her aides. This is really weird because I can't pick up exactly what she's saying. She says something about like this has to be a live question. I don't know why she's butting in. I don't know if maybe like the question is off script and this was all very scripted. Could be. But anyway, that was very, very weird.
Okay, what happened to that student loan money? What happened to the $10,000 promised to the students for student loan debt?
I should add, this is something that the administration has no excuse. They have no excuse that this is something that Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema can derail. This is something that can be effectively dealt with by executive action alone. So no, there is literally no one to blame for the failure at the student debt issue than Joe Biden himself.
Why did they renege on that?
So I know you had Secretary Cardona on recently, and I'll tell you, he is working to increase relief for students. And look, I get it. I get the issue that you're talking about. I had student loans. I mean, look, it's right now we have so many people, tens of millions of people in the United States who are dealing with student loan debt and responsibilities, and it's standing in the way of them being able to start a family or buy a home. And it's real, and we need to deal with it.
Well, you could deal with it with a pen and a piece of paper. This is such bullshit rhetoric. This is classic Democrat bullshit rhetoric. It's like, yes, we need to do something about it, but we will just not do it. We'll tie our hands behind our back on our own. We'll shoot ourselves in the foot. We'll do every single form of political self-harm possible, but we won't actually undertake any policy that is to the benefit of working people or young people if it involves any sort of anything that impacts wealth creation. So the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is the Republicans will just openly not care at all about these issues. I made a video about the Hill's Robbie Suave arguing against student debt. They don't care. They have zero empathy. They're pathologically incapable of caring about people. Whereas Democrats will just play the game of, yes, we're the party that cares, but then in the end, they don't do anything either.
I remember, I'm gonna date myself, but I had that little coupon where I'd have to pull out the coupon and put in the number and send a check with it every month. And that's real. That is real.
We need you to be the superhero that saves democracy. Somebody has to push back on Joe Manchin. That guy is stopping progress. He's ruining democracy. Are you willing to be that superhero? Because what scares me is if voting rights don't pass, or the Build Back Better plan doesn't pass, or police reform doesn't pass, I doubt you're going to get black people to go out there and vote in 2022 and 2024, and, Trump will be president again. What's the plan for all of that?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on the seriousness of these issues and how people take these issues seriously. And so we're going to have to keep fighting. On voting rights, we need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We need to pass the Freedom to Vote Act.
We need to pass this. We need to pass that. What are you doing to pass all this? That is the question that he posed. I think it could not be clearer. What is the strategy for passing those bills? This is... I honestly can't believe it. I honestly can't believe it. Back in 2016... when there was a significant threat, I think, to democracy for reasons involving, you know, Supreme Court nominees, things like that. There was very good reason to vote for Hillary Clinton, however awful she was. In 2024, I honestly don't think there will be any reason to vote for a I know I'm sounding a bit like Jimmy Dore right now, but let's be honest. There is no reason anymore to vote for them because the Supreme Court is already as conservative as it can be. Other courts as well are just, you know, stuffed with conservative judges. What's the point now? What's the loss, really? And they still don't get it. They still don't get it. There is an attitude of condescension, and you'll see this a bit later, of almost thinking you have to vote for us, even though we don't do anything to improve your material well-being.
And be relentless about pushing for that, which is what we have been doing and what I certainly am going to keep doing. We need to keep pushing for what we got to do to really reform the system that we know needs to be reformed with the.
Like what? Like what? Just say what? Say how you're going to do this. Holy shit.
George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But, you know, again, Republicans stood in the way to get that done. So what did we do? Well, through the Department of Justice, we banned chokeholds and carotid holds. We said that law enforcement at the federal level, where we have the power to do it without Congress, that they have to wear body cameras when they're serving warrants. We put in place investigations of police departments.
How many people are going to be, you know, stopped by a federal police, you know, someone from the federal government on a regular basis? You really think that that's like the main fear of people in communities who are legitimately terrified of police violence? No, I don't.
That are active investigations right now. We are supporting consent decrees. So we are doing those things in the face of Republican opposition, but we cannot give up. None of us can. And the reality is, because the issues are too serious and they impact everybody every day. And I agree with you. They're very serious.
Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlamagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
Wow, just wow. Just imagine how discomforting this question is to her staffers. You know, the risk that she's just going to give a bad answer, that they're immediately butting in to end the conversation. This is just so bad optics, like so bad. If that was my staffer, she'd be fired immediately. Like, you don't do this. You don't realize just how bad those optics are. Like, you have to trust that the person who you are working for is very capable of answering even the most uncomfortable question. You have to be able to do that. Like, you have to realize that this looks so much worse because it makes it seem like there are questions she doesn't want to answer. Yeah, I would fire her ass like that moment.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
So I'm sorry, you got to wrap.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlamagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican.
Okay, this is the part that really just really irritated me. How can you respond to what I think is a very legitimate question? Like, because the Biden administration has given so much leeway to people like Manchin, to people like Sinema, that it's a legitimate question. If this person is going to derail your entire agenda single-handedly, then he is, in fact, the most powerful person in US politics right now. And I genuinely think he is. So you cannot respond to that question by sort of challenging the loyalty of the person who's like, who cares if Charlamagne the God? I mean, I don't know his politics, but I wonder if there's this presumption, oh, well, he's black, he must be a Democratic voter. And therefore, if you ask a question that makes me slightly uncomfortable, whoa, you're heading into Republican territory there. Those questions are not valid, or framing those questions that way. And I thought this was a perfectly legitimate question. Yeah, Again, I don't know how scripted this was. I don't know if Kamala Harris had the questions beforehand. But yeah, it was clearly a question that made her uncomfortable and made her staffer even more uncomfortable.
About asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris. And the reality is, because we are in office, we do the things like the child tax credit, which is going to reduce black child poverty by 50%, on track to do that. We do things that are about saying that our Department of Justice is going to do these investigations and require that we end chokeholds and have body cameras. It is the work of saying we're going to get lead out of pipes and paint because our babies are suffering because of that. It is the work of saying people who ride public transit deserve the same kind of dignity that anybody else does, so let's improve that system. It is the work of saying that we have got to bring down prescription drug costs because folks who have diabetes should not be dying because they don't have enough money in their pocket.
They haven't done any of that. Like, the things that she's mentioning are either not sufficient to resolve the problem. I mean, how many killings? Like, the reason that I think people have been outraged by so many police killings is because they're caught on camera. You know, this is just so wrong. And then this issue of the last issue that she brought up, what are they doing about it? What are they doing about it? What's the when the Build Back Better bill was being negotiated, they specifically eliminated the provision of Medicare negotiating its drug prices as an institution. Ironically, voted against by the same people who gave the argument that they were concerned about the size of the bill, you know, from a fiscal perspective. So these same fiscal hawks are fine derailing a policy that would actually make it cheaper to buy drugs by the federal government and then offering them to people so that they can get these drugs at affordable prices. They failed at that. They absolutely failed at that.
It's about saying black maternal mortality is a real issue that must be treated by everybody, including the White House, as a serious issue. I hear the frustration, but let's not deny the impact that we've had and agree also that there is a whole lot more work to be done. And it is not easy to do, but we will not give up, and I will not give up.
I just want you to know that Madam Vice President, that Kamala Harris, that's the one I like. That's the one that was putting the pressure on people in Senate hearings. That's the one I'd like to see more often out here in these streets.
You won't see it often, my dude, I'm afraid.
Thank you for joining us, Madam Vice President.
Thank you for joining us, Madam Vice President, and your obnoxious staffer. Yeah, that was cringe. That was cringe. There's been some comments that maybe that last question was already scripted, was already meant for her to go on this very passionate rant in the end. I'm not quite sure that's the case. I mean, it could be. You don't know. But I definitely think she already has kind of that answer pre-prepared in the event that it pops up at any, you know, press engagement or interview. So I don't necessarily think it's that it was scripted for this particular interview. But still, it's such an easy argument to take apart that this is all just vacuous rhetoric. All of this is like, this is just such a colossally mammoth, incompetent administration that is paving the road. Like, my argument has always been liberal centrists pave the road for fascism, and then they act like fascism is the biggest threat to democracy. That's why you have to keep voting for us. That's the game that they play. That's how they're going to run in 2022 and in 2024, especially if Trump runs again in 2024. That is what they're going to run on. Not on their achievements, because they will have none, especially if they become lame ducks after 2022. They will have nothing to run on. Absolutely nothing to run on. And they will just run on fear of another Trump presidency. And quite frankly, at this point, like I said earlier in the video, I just don't think there is, you have, at some point, this chain needs to break. You can't just vote for the centrists all the time, just so that the fascists don't win. Because you don't leave this loop. And this is the hopelessness of the situation, because as we learned in 2016, the Democratic Party will not learn from losing. So I really don't know how to get away from this death loop that is constantly happening every 4 years. I don't know. Bernie Sanders was the great hope of breaking that death loop, but I don't know who might emerge in 2024 to pull this off. At least certainly the Democratic candidates who they're kind of hoping will run, whether it's Buttigieg or Kamala, like they're all bad. They're all terrible. I really have no hope on this. And I'm not saying this in the sense of, well, you just gotta sit this one out and vote for Trump, and maybe the Dems will the Jimmy Dore argument, vote for Trump or vote for a third party so that the Dems learn their lesson. They're not going to learn. So I don't know. I just think this situation is going to promote such a degree of political nihilism that people are either going to sit it out, vote for third parties, or even just vote for Trump out of pure spite for how incompetent the Democratic Party is. And at this point, you just can't blame them anymore. You really just can't blame them anymore. This is, and like I said, there's very little to lose now for this, because this won't change the composition of the Supreme Court. That was a shot that you had in 2016, and they blew it. Yeah, this is incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. But on that note, if you like this video, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time.